Terri Muuss is a licensed social worker who specializes in the use of the arts as a healing mechanism for trauma survivors. She is also an author, teacher, actor, director, motivational speaker, and also does life coaching with a focus on addiction and abuse counseling. Terri, thank you for coming in today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, that's great. It's great to see you again. I go back to a number of years ago, and we were trying to decide exactly how long, but I had a chance to see your one-woman show, Anatomy of a Doll, and I was so impressed with it that I brought you back for a conference. And what comes to mind is, it was so courageous. And I don't know if you view it that way. I mean, there you were, really allowing yourself to be vulnerable in front of so many people, and of course you've done the show quite a number of times since then. What encouraged you to do that?
It's interesting, the concept of courage with the show and with telling my story. A lot of people feel that way when they hear it, and I have to appreciate that that's the way a lot of people see it. For me, it's always felt like survival. I feel like telling you your truth sets you free to really kind of live your life. And part of that has been helpful to other people. You know, you do it in the beginning for yourself, that telling, and then later it becomes important to help other people. But it really feels less courageous and more vital.
As I sat there watching it, it was the most clarity I have ever experienced in terms of understanding how trauma and addiction related. And I imagine it was so much a part of your healing that when you say vital, it's because you had to do this for yourself.
Yes. Well, and I also think, you know, as a sexual abuse survivor, and that's the part that I think a lot of people think is the most courageous, that I'm able to say I'm an incest survivor, you know, use the big I word out there in the world. For me, I've gotten to a place where I don't see that as brave. I shouldn't have to, bravery says, well, this is something that shouldn't be out there, or that I should be ashamed of, or that I think there's something in that they say, well, people don't want to hear that, or it's something that people don't talk about. So then it's brave to break past that. What I'm here to say is that I've gotten to the place where I don't feel any shame about something that was never my fault, that I was the victim of something and now the survivor, thriver of something. So I talk about that as just one element of who I am.
You communicate to people that you can bounce back, that you can heal.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't understand from a trauma standpoint how important the arts can be and how important the healing process requires experiencing. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, the way I like to explain it to people is that trauma takes place, it resides in a part of your brain that has no language. So you're asking people to talk about something that literally has no words, especially when you're in a talk therapy situation. And my experience is, you know, I came into talk therapy and I reached a real roadblock into being able to discuss things that felt like they had no words. There was no, I had no ability to express something so large or so overwhelming. And so what my therapist helped me do was realize there was other ways through that, writing about it in writing groups, doing yoga and body work and chakra work, dancing about it, painting it. Those things worked in a nice conjunction with my talk therapy. So I would experience stuff in the arts that would unlock something that I couldn't speak about. Then once I had unlocked it through that artistic expression, then I could bring it into talk therapy. Or if I talked about something in therapy and it became so big and I didn't know how to process it fully because I had let something huge out of me that I didn't know, it seemed like a bottomless pit, then I could also write or dance or do something about it. So those two things worked together so well for me in my own process. And I was always an artist. I think a lot of people who've experienced trauma they fall into the arts because it is another language. So I want to be able to give that to other people. I want to say to both clinicians and to people on the other side of the couch that the arts are a real important modality for reclaiming memories, for finding healing, for talking about trauma, for processing things that seem bottomless, you know, just overwhelming.
And of course, as you've gone along, you decided to write a book.
Yes, yes, I did.
Talk about the book.
It's 15 years in the making. it has some pieces of my one-woman show, which you have seen, Anatomy of a Doll. It's called Overexposed. I wanted it, I'm a poet by nature, but I wanted the book to be both poetry and prose, because the experience of uncovering trauma or of living trauma or of experienced trauma comes in fits and starts. It isn't a linear story. You know, it's not a typical memoir that starts here and ends here in a linear timeline. I wanted it to jump around in time. I wanted it to have pieces of prose that were very fleshed out and fully realized. And then the poetry, sort of condensed pieces that give you very sharp images, but only pieces, which is the way it feels when you're recovering trauma. So I thought of it as the book is the landscape, right? But the prose is the landscape, and the poems are the bombs, you know, the landmines, where they just kind of explode into very visceral images of what it's like to be a survivor. I know some people are pomophobic, so they want to stay away from poetry, but it's hopefully accessible poetry that allows people into the experience and the mind of being a trauma survivor. It also has hope, though, at the end. It ends with talking about being a mom and a wife and reclaiming a life that's possible for every survivor. So it is a memoir, but told through poetry and poetic prose.
And a message of hope for people.
And a message of hope. I mean, I think some people are afraid to pick it up because they know there's going to be difficult subject matter in it, but I want to say to them that there's hope at the end. There's the real hopefulness of the book is that I'm here and that I'm okay, and I'm a loving mom and a wife and a successful person, and that's possible for everybody, but not if you're not willing to go through all that stuff that got you there. You have to be willing to kind of jump in the rabbit hole and do that work.
And you have to find the right people to guide you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you find somebody who's not right for you the first time, that doesn't mean therapy is wrong for you. It means that you haven't found the right therapist. We wouldn't go to a doctor who didn't have good bedside manner, who misdiagnosed us, and say, I'm never going back to a doctor ever again.
Right.
We'd find another doctor. And that's true for anybody. Not everybody is the right therapist for the right person. It is a marriage of sorts. And not every therapist is the right person for the thing you're working on. Grief, substance abuse, trauma. You have to find the right therapist for the right person with the right situation. So,
Terri, if people are more interested in maybe purchasing a book or learning more about you, what's the best way to contact you?
They could go to my website, www.terrimeuss.com. The book's available on Amazon.com. You could just put my name in a Google search on Amazon.
Is that, right?
Yes, it is fun. It's fun. It's fun. I've always wanted to be an author, and I never thought it could happen. But you know, it's another one of those things with enough work. You know, you just put down get your pen to paper every day. You can get it done. So,
Terri, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's really a pleasure.